Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in the Twin Cities, it's time for Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio. Folks, we've got a good one today. Young Bebus is with us, and she is a managing broker at VR Business Brokers. Young, welcome.
Well, thank you. Good morning, John. Thanks for having me this morning.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. And I've been looking forward to this. And I'll tell everybody why in a second. But before we get to that, let's talk about you and talk about VR Business Brokers. How are you serving folks out there?
We help our small business owners in our privately held company market and the small to mid-market size business owners. When the business owners are looking for a sale or exit or growth by mergers and acquisitions, and we're having fun. We're enjoying the what's happening in the marketplace, good and bad. Some of the challenges that have been occurred by the COVID and some of the things that happen in the marketplace obviously have some impact, but we see a lot of business owners overcoming or looking for some options. So we're working with the business owners in different ways that we can assist them. And we have a market here in Minnesota, part of the VR network as a national brokerage firm network. And VR meaning value to representation, and that we try to live by every day for our clients. And again, my name is Young Bebus. I'm the managing broker and certified M&A professional and business certified appraiser, and working with our brokers and our clients here at the office and helping them day in and out. Yeah.
Well, let's I guess get definitional if we can.
Absolutely.
You know, I think business owners get confused maybe sometimes because they hear terms like business broker, investment banker, M&A advisor. You know, sort those terms out for us, if you would. Sure.
We use a business broker. When we do a business brokering, a lot of times that means 100% transactions. Say we are selling a business owner's business and putting it in the hands of another business owner. So going through the transaction and closing. Mergers and acquisitions, very similar in the process where there might be some different structuring of the business sale. For an instance, we have a business owner looking at staying with a buying company with the part as a rollover equity owner of, say, 15% to 20%. And the remainder is bought out, majority is bought out by the larger company who's purchasing company, buying company. And that buying company could be private equity group or a venture capitalist, or it could be a synergetic company that is buying and allowing the existing owner to stay, continue to help with the business growth. Investment banking a lot of times is used with the terms of larger scale stock exchange or a public company sale as well. Although a lot of investment bankers are part of the middle market transactions, looking at putting in the hands of the going IPOs or the going public, I guess. So that's what more easier way to say that, going public and with an IPO and putting in the buying more investors, so to speak, finding more investors. So I'm not sure if that explained.
No, that's great. Yeah, that's okay. A great explanation, because I think some folks get confused on that, sure. Some of those distinctions. But let's talk a little bit before we dive into further details of your work and how you serve. Let's talk about you and your career journey. And you were in healthcare operations.
I was
before you started your business. Mm-hmm. Talk about what your experiences there, what you learned out of that, and why you got into business brokerage.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, John. So I'll kind of start with my background and heritage, and I think it's important in the sense why I'm a business owner myself as well, and why I do what I do. I grew up in South Korea, and my parents and grandparents, they always had a small business, not because they were entrepreneur fancy, they had a lot of money, but because they had, by default, they were farmers, then they were butchers, and then they owned the restaurant, and they owned the clothing store. So they went through a career change themselves through different types of businesses, and that was how they sent, me and my siblings to the college, and
Wow.
hardworking. Mm-hmm. And business was always in the sort of forefront of my mind. And I came to the United States, 1997, mm-hmm. and just right after I finished my college. And I continued on with my journey of education and kind of working with the corporate America and working for, say, large retail stores to a insurance company to a healthcare operations. I sort of tumbled into insurance, healthcare, assisted living operations. And then I stayed in that space for, say, 20 years. Mm. And through that career, I grew up in that field, I would say, because, post college and graduating, during that time, I worked as office manager, corporate marketing manager, executive director, and regional director and COO. So I sort of grew vastly, and I had a wonderful, fantastic career. And I feel so grateful for it, learned so much. Through the more of a corporate positions that I've had, we were involved in mergers and acquisitions of pre-due diligence. So due diligence, pre-closing and post-closing due diligence. And we didn't necessarily use those terms, but that's exactly what it was, right? So when we went through that, I just loved the transition process before and after being involved in that sort of exciting journey of the change. And that field has been always in my mind and interest is sort of mergers and acquisition, or, you would call it a brokerage or mergers and acquisition. In our space, we generally use term of M&A. Mm-hmm. So when and again, I've always had a journey of looking for a business opportunity of my own. And I would say that's been on my mind during entire probably 20 years. I met with the SCORE, which is a national sort of platform as part of the SBA, and met with some fantastic SCORE mentors. And as I went through the journey, I was looking for a business to purchase for myself during the healthcare operations side, and which, of course, at that time would have been my field of area that I knew, which would have been healthcare operations. Through that process, I just loved how small business transaction is quite different from M&A transactions, what different terms and how financials are looked at even differently, and who are involved behind the scenes and post-closing scenes and all of that. And I've done my research, and I said, this is what I want to do. And I've gotten my licensure that I was required to have, and I opened up the office. So that was sort of startup of my phase of the M&A space. But so far, the experience and the business owners we've worked with, I love it. For an example, we had a business owner who worked with a partner. Partner was absentee, more of a business side, and this particular owner, 50% owner, was more of a field operation. Mm-hmm. When he transacted with a good buyer in place, he said, I can finally spend my holiday not away from my family. I can spend my time, my multiple holidays at once, and go through a retirement. And buyers were happy with having the business opportunities. And that was, it's a great accomplishment by making a difference in a person's lives. It's not only just the business world. Other examples, business owners who thought about it and planned on it, and they stay engaged with us for multiple years. Mm-hmm. And we actually see the business going through the growth in the right way with the right value drivers, and transacting at the sort of their wish point of, their target exit price, so to speak.
Right.
So those are we make impact by helping another small business owners to grow by an acquisition, finding just a really good synergetic opportunity who's selling. So selling owner is able to retire with a really good buyer in place. That buyer is able to grow that business with a legacy that they built on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's seeing all of that. It's just been fantastic. So we love deal makings.
That's awesome. Now, one thing I heard in your history that I think is quite wise, and I'm not sure, you're probably the 1% of potential business owners that might take advantage of this, is you mentioned going to SCORE before you bought the business, opened the business, to figure out what the best alternatives for you were. And I that could apply to folks that want to actually buy a business, correct?
Oh, for sure. Yes, for sure. In fact, I'm now, to be able to give back to that, my history, I was working as a SCORE mentor, but with sort of more of a demanding hours, obviously, in the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm staying as more of a SCORE emeritus member, and I'm
well. Thank you for giving back that way, by the way. So,
thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed. I met with just wonderful mentors, and we do I'm going to be starting a business startup courses with SCORE, obviously what SCORE has been offering as one of the instructors. But yeah, I think a lot of times people think about startups, don't think too much about the business purchase as an option. Great to explore that option because there's a cash flow immediately, and there's established trade and established suppliers, established accounts, established customer base, and established employees. And those are all the good things to look at and do maybe check out some options and do some financial analysis and what does that look like and how different is that. So for sure.
And based on what I know about SCORE, those services are offered free, right?
Yes.
Folks, you can't get any better value proposition than that. So,
sure.
Folks, we're here chatting with Young Bebus, and she is with VR Business Brokers here in the Minnesota area. So, Young, I want to talk to you about your experience as a corporate executive coming out of corporate. You're able to talk to folks in that situation that have maybe they're tired of corporate and they want to leave and buy a business. Maybe they've been laid off and they want to buy a business. Talk about what an individual like that needs to think about, right? Because you have a unique perspective there that others maybe don't have.
Right. Yeah, in fact, we see a lot, whether that involved the layoff or proper planning.
Sure.
That we have a lot of corporate executives who are forming a group with the potential search funds to be able to buy decent sized companies. We see more and more of that nowadays, and it seems to be sort of the trend. There are different types of buyers, and they make a good buyer or buyer group because they come with that management experience. What might lack is probably how corporate America, I'm just going to use a simple example. A profit and loss statement might look a little bit different for small businesses, right? And that's a benefit to understand that we're small business owners. And we talk about small business owners, what's the revenue of the small businesses, and it really goes vastly high as, hundreds of millions of dollars too, right? So we're talking about potentially it could be a business that creates a revenue of $1 million. Or let's start with $500,000, $1 million, $20 million, $70 million. Those are all considered, if they're not a public status, that are considered privately held companies. So when we look at nowadays, a lot of corporate executives are looking for a good company that's been established to purchase. Now, perspectives in that is I use analogy of jumping off the cliff and the landing the right side. So to do that right, you do want to partner with the right advisors, and that could involve the broker, could involve the CPA or an attorney, organizations such as could be as utilizing the resources and the talking through with experienced folks and the score. So it really involves, I use also analogy of, it takes a village to raise a child. So, a person can't do it alone, right? So, in having the right sort of advisors and right set of the eyes in the certain industries, it really makes a big difference. I would say, and that's where I saw the opportunity for myself. And I got into a brokerage in the sense when I was looking for business opportunities, having the right advisor to me was an important as well. And I saw the opportunity and the room for a sort of bettering the, making a better contribution, I suppose, in a way, by going into the industry, because I had a good understanding of what is required for regulatory compliance in healthcare. Because there are challenges when transaction goes through without having the proper licensing in place. I'm just going to use that as one blunt example, but that happens. And I know that particularly certain licensing agency, shared with me that about 30% of transactions come through without proper licensing process, meaning that becomes an encumbrance to buyer and seller, to the buyer. And then for sellers, if it doesn't happen with a proper licensing, seller can't sell. So it is, those are small, I would say, idiosyncrasy of each industry that requires a transaction to take place with the, extra sensitive eyes and strategic sort of strategy going through the transaction point A to point Z, where, it requires the right set of, I think, the partnership. That's where I saw the opportunity especially the healthcare side for small business owners. And there are so many who's, I think, being served well, but also served with the additional opportunities in our space of work that we do. So, it's important as far as kind of going back to your question of being prepared to going into buying an existing business or changing the career path, just emotionally and financially being ready. And those are both important. We usually use a term of that, people who are willing and ready. Willing means I'm emotionally available to really take to the next level of career change. It really is. And then ready means financially, and also ready having, what does that look like for me? What is my net worth? Will I be qualified for financing? So those are important questions. And, 3 things I think for if they're shifting from corporate to the business world, they're sort of buying into that career. So 3 things to always keep in mind is that will it cover my sort of change by changing my career? Does it cover my my life living expenses and my my lifestyle? Does it support my lifestyle that I'm used to? 1. 2 is will I have enough coverage for paying for the potential principal and interest that I'm going to incur through the financing process? And 3, will I have some return on investment that I can have to be able to reinvest in the future investment? So those are 3 things that I ask people to look at. So I don't know if that helps.
No, that's terrific. It makes perfect sense. And I love how you bring the emotional piece into it as well. Because it's not just financial, it's a whole mindset change, and you got to be ready for that. So, that's great advice. Let's talk about, I guess maybe the process. And as I understand it, business brokers, you're typically representing the seller, correct?
Usually that's correct.
Yeah. Do you do buyer representation as well?
We do.
Okay.
We do. In our business, generally, buyers are more, I would say, takes a little bit longer to find the business opportunity and buy unless they're in the space of constant acquisition, like private equity groups or investment groups or family offices that are constantly looking for those opportunities. So it depends on where they're at. We work with the corporate buyers as well, who is looking to acquire for mergers and acquisitions to grow. Mm-hmm. What's nice about working with a firm like ours is from buyer company side is we can point them to the right direction as to what to look for and help with reaching out to potential even competitors in with a confidential manner, mm-hmm. Or suppliers, because acquisition can happen horizontally or vertically. So it depends on what their target is. We can look at that and also really look at impact of what kind of synergies there financially and operationally, which in turn could lower some of the operational costs for G&A, general administrative cost, which then could increase higher. It could bring a higher cash flow for them at the end of the day, mm-hmm. which then increases their, company financial capabilities, obviously. So we look at multiple factors for the buyers. Sellers generally process is when we work with the sellers, biggest question a lot of times business owner has is what's my business value? What are some of the things I need to look for if I need to grow the business? So we value the business first. We come up with broker opinion of value, and then but in the initial conversations, sometimes we do, by doing a little bit more discovery, working with the clients, if they're not ready and they need to position their company, they need to come up with the options, really what is the best options. We do, analysis of shareholder options, where is a status quo for so long, and what are some of the options that they have in terms of transaction or sales? What are some of the methods? And then, or we might go into a business formal appraisal based on who's involved in the business. It could involve family members who are gifted with some of the shares, or mm-hmm. it could involve the partners. So then potentially it might be beneficial to go through a formal appraisal process of their business. So given that value is done, the value analysis completed, we go through an engagement process where we work with the clients generally for about a year or so. And once we go through an engagement process, we will go ahead and package the business for marketing materials. So that would be a second step where we prepare the business for marketing and package that in the ways that it sort of shows the business strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats, as well as their financial analysis, customer mix, revenue mix, uniqueness, low-hanging fruits. We present the business in the ways that kind of shed light about the business and have a good understanding of our client's business. And then we go to market with go-to-market strategy. When we work with the business owners based on specific types of business, every business is a little bit different. What we generally do is we do layers of marketing. We do target marketing as well as bigger crowd in a confidential manner. But again, depends on the business. We go to market in a different ways. We might do a very targeted, say, selected, 15, 20 different sort of target markets, and then we go to market with those versus doing going to the open market where with the confidentiality. So they do vary. So once the marketing strategy is agreed upon, we work through vetting buyers and the buyer management process. We do bring the offer in. We help business owners negotiate in terms and conditions of those, work with the right advisors in the right time. So we quarterback the process, depends on the size of the business. We, it's important for us to kind of partner with and collaborate with their advisors, such as financial advisors, CPA, and attorney. And we bring them into the process early on. If there is a component of the certain business that requires and calls for more of those circumstances for tax consequences or post-closing, mitigate any sort of post-closing transaction complications and things like that. So we really kind of watch out for those process and partnering with the right people. And purchase agreement, we stay with our client all the way through the closing. We make an arrangement to make sure that that all happens. So where I think the challenging or difficult part for people to generally understand is that it's not about finding a buyer. It's about finding the right buyer with a synergy and having that going through the end of the closing process, going through financing, working with advisors and making sure all the due diligence part is completed. So I would say those are, that's where I would say most important part, that's most laboring part. Finding buyers is one thing, and going through the transaction in itself is also a different thing. So that's where I think, we can partner with business owners in different ways with the quality and the attention to details and really being there as their thinking partners for the business owners.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so important for business owners contemplating a sale to know, because there's so many transactions, and you can address this more specifically than I'm about to. There's so many transactions that get signed as a preliminary agreement, but never make it to the closing table, right?
Right. And that's more so than actually not. And we worked with quite a lot of business owners who came after. So I'll give you an example. One of the buyers said, so we're so excited. We put in an offer to this one of our competitors. They accepted an offer. What do we do now? Right. So is that just kind of working through, depends on who they're working with when it comes to their advisors. And, quite a few of the questions that business owners had was, well, okay, we made an offer, but was that the right offer? What's part of the due diligence? What are some of the checklists we're missing here? Did we miss anything? We feel a little bit uneasy because we don't know that we don't do this day in and day out. So that's one of the examples. And other examples are the sellers are approached by buyers, and they work with a buyer usually, and then that falls through. And then there's another buyer who approaches, that fall through. During that time, what happens is we see quite a lot of times business do decline because with the thought process of, okay, now I have a buyer in place. I can take it easy a little bit, and business declines. So we want to make sure our business owners stay focused on their business. If they're in day-to-day operations, we want them to stay in day-to-day operations. If they're not, and they're absentee owners, still have a pulse on the business so that business continues to stay either, where they are or continue to grow, and for the benefit of the sellers and the buyers as well. And when business owner gets sidetracked working with the potential buyers of their business, we do see that on their own without the having support, it makes it really difficult. So we've had a few business owners who came to us with a declined revenue and the earnings after they've worked with quite a few, say 2 to 3 buyers, and they said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. I'm exhausted working with the buyers because it is a laboring process. The best way to describe this is that when business owner works in a manufacturing and that's what they do, what we do is a completely different industry. Just see that as different industry. When you do that, how do you bring the synergy in when working with the business brokers? And it's a better way to look at them and say, it's not part of my work. I could do this, but at the same time, I like to have someone else bring it. Just as example of CPA for tax work. It could be an example of suppliers bringing suppliers. See that as, okay, I can work simultaneously as a partnership and collaborating it versus me doing it myself. And that is a good way to look at it from a business owner perspective. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. Well, Young, this has been great. And lots, I think, for business owners that want to sell and maybe potential buyers as they think about purchasing, a lot for them to think about, and way too much that we could talk about that we can't fit into this program. So let's get to the most important question, which is for those that want to be in touch, kind of explore some of these issues with you and maybe talk about an engagement. How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So our audience can get hold of us by giving us a call or sending us an email. And I can give our email address. That is Young, Young, B, as in boy, Young B, at vrtwincities.com. And our phone number is 651-330-1767. And our website is www.vrtwincities.com.
Awesome. Young Bebus, folks, and she is the managing partner, owner of VR Business Brokers. Young, this has been great. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Folks, just a quick reminder that we are here to support small, medium-sized business owners that otherwise wouldn't have a platform to tell the great stories that they have to share and to share that the great work that they do in service to others. So here's how you can support them. One small way is go subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio is the search term, and give us a 5-star review. Again, it's not about me. It's not about Business RadioX. It's about our great business leaders that we feature on this show, like Young and others that we've had over the time we've had the show going. And we love it if you would support them in that way, because if you do that, it's easier for folks to find the show, folks that might be able to use their services and their products. So thank you in advance for that. If you want to find our complete show archive, you can go, maybe the shortest URL is to go to minnesotabusinessradio.com. You can find our complete show archive there. And if you want to see other shows on the Business RadioX network, just go to businessradiox.com and you can find our national network there as well. So for my guest, Young Bebus, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on Minneapolis-St. Paul Business Radio.